Okay, I believe that we're live, so that's super exciting. Here we go. Thank you all for being here. Welcome back to Her First Million, a new YouTube channel tailored for women business owners in traditionally male-dominated industries like manufacturing, construction, tech, and banking. I'm Amanda Bedell, your host and resident business chaos sorter. With Her First Million, we provide 3 segments set to transform your business trajectory. First is Love Your Numbers. Here, I'm unraveling the complexities of financial management. We demystify the numbers so that you can know what your cash flow is now, making better decisions in your business and optimizing for greater profitability. Then, in the second segment, it's called Ask Amanda. Your questions take center stage where no question is off limits. Whether you slide into DMs for privacy or you put your comments below and share your inquiries there. I'm thrilled to hear from you and share insightful answers that can help you steer your business in the right direction. And then the segments I'm most excited about are the interviews. I sit down with trailblazing women entrepreneurs who have excelled in industries traditionally dominated by men. In these industries, we'll unearth the strategies and navigate through challenges and uncover the secrets that have led to exceptional women that for these women that have gone to 1 million and beyond. And today, right here and right now, we are live with we're about to uncover or have one of those conversations with none other than my friend Connie Whitman. Her story is set to inspire, her insights are set to transform, and her journey is a testament to the incredible potential that awaits within each of you. So without further ado, let's dive into the heart of Her First Million and welcome my guest, Connie Whitman. Connie, hello.
Hello, my friend.
Connie,
Good to see you.
yay. Connie is a 4-time #1 international bestseller, including her book ESP, Easy Sales Process. It's a 7 steps to sales success. She's also a speaker and a podcast host. Her inspired teaching, transformational tools, and content ensure that business owners and salespeople grow their revenue streams through enhanced communication skills. She is thrilled to share inspiring content on her international podcast, Changing the Sales Game, and Enlightenment of Change. And she's my sales coach, and I'm thrilled to have her here. Connie, before we get down to the 7-step process, which was a huge game changer for me as I grew my company, the 7-step sales process that you'll uncover today. Could you share a little bit more about you and how you got here?
So it's interesting with your intro, Amanda. I was thinking about it, growing up in the financial service industry. And can I just share a really quick story? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So, because there's hope, right? There's always hope. And when I started out of college, I got a job for a credit company. I was going for my MBA at night in finance. This is back in the 80s. And so I had this job going to school at night, and I ran the leasing department for a car credit company. And nobody knew what leasing was back in the 80s, but it was really good for business owners because they could write off the whole premium, the whole payment. So I kept getting these deals in that were retail, right, buying instead of leasing. And I would just call the dealer and I would say, hey, dude, listen, you're really not doing the right thing for the customer. The lease would be better. And they would say to me, we don't know how to do the calculation. We didn't have computers back then. So I said, pull out your calculator. I'll teach you how to do it. And then I would say to them, and they'd say, well, now I'm going to be embarrassed. I said, don't be embarrassed. The business owner is going to love you for this. This is what you say. It was very intuitive for me. Well, fast forward, after about 6 months, I was getting in hundreds of lease deals a week, right? So we grew from zero to, multiple, we grew thousands of percentages. And then they had a sales position open internally. So the dealers, all these men, right? And I was a young kid. They started calling me, you're going to apply for the sales job. And Amanda, this was my reaction. I go, why would I apply for a sales job? I don't know anything about sales. And they said, what do you think you've been teaching us? Do you know how much money we're making because of your recommendation? And now those business owners that you asked us to reach back out to, they're bringing their friends and they're referring people. So the dealership was growing, the sales was growing. And I was teaching them. I thought I was just educating them on the benefits, right, for this particular target market.
Mhm.
Fast forward, I go and I ask my boss, can I get promoted? I think I'm good at this stuff. Can I throw my hat in the ring? And he said, no, I was a girl. And he said, you're a female. They won't ever
He
let me
said
promote
it
you.
out
He said
loud.
it out loud. It was a different world in the 80s. Here's the thing, though. So, see, there's always a silver lining. I believe that.
Mhm.
And he said to me, this tells me that you've already outgrown this company. He saw probably even before I did my capability. So he said, you need to look for another job. He says, I will help you. You don't have to take days off to go on interviews. He said, but you need to do you, and you've outgrown us. And that was really, see how from something he knew it was wrong, right? Even as a male, an elderly male, he knew it was wrong, yet his hands were tied because of the corporate culture.
Mhm.
And I left and I got into the financial sales and never looked back. And then I started my own business 25 years ago. Again, I wanted to be in control of my money and my time. I had babies at home and I wanted more control of my life. But always find, so here's the inspiration right behind that. Find the silver lining. It was what it was. They weren't going to hold me back, right? I went and I looked for another job, right? We're always in control of our destiny. But be mindful who's there, who's your champions behind you,
Mhm.
leverage them, use them. He was a great resource for me in looking for another job and ending up becoming ultimately a financial advisor.
That gives me goosebumps just thinking about him and
Yeah.
him stepping out
True
of
story. Yeah.
the yeah, the true story. And that's where you came from for real, so we can just roll right into, that we all have subconscious bias, and our listeners know this because they live this every single day on job sites where men traditionally lead, like in the bank example that you just gave me, and in construction companies. So what are the foundational components of communication that don't really support healthy and effective communication?
So it's interesting when we talk about communication itself, right? Forget about the sales
Mhm,
process for a minute. We have so many humans, we have layers, we have biases that Amanda, we don't even know are there
mhm,
because it just is what it is. Our brains are very complex computers in essence. So we
mhm,
have filters that we derive through life. So really quickly, I'll go through them. One is men and women. We are wired differently, Amanda. So we think differently. We bring something different to the table. So I
mhm,
caution anybody, look, I belong to women's organizations too. I find I learn more when it's that mixture of male and female because
mhm,
that friction of opinion is where innovation comes from. So we don't want to isolate ourselves from men's perspective and men if you're watching a women's perspective, right? It's
mhm,
we need that friction and we need that thought process because it's radically different. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
mhm,
Second one is where you grew up. Now you're in the Pacific Northwest. I'm here on the East Coast in Jersey. I grew up in an inner city and then moved to the suburbs. So there's a harshness about, I work on it, but there's this
mhm.
very directness because I'm East Coast Jersey, but also
Yes.
growing up in an inner city, I see the world, right? Sometimes where I become very direct because it's obvious what's the problem. So I've had to learn to tone that down. So how you were raised, where you were raised, the environment really does impact how we communicate. More importantly, how people are receiving our messaging. So, where
Mhm,
you grew up. Next one is our heritage, our traditions that we've learned through mom, dad, church, whatever it is. So, coming from an Italian household, right? Family, it's all about family. It's all about food. It's all about bringing people together at the holidays, right? In celebration. Where my friends who came from very small families, when they hear, when I first started doing Christmas Eve with 40 people, their heads exploded. How are you going to do that? And you work full time? And I looked at them and I'm like, what's the big deal? Because I grew up from a 4-year-old helping take dishes away when we had 70 people for dinner. It's
mhm,
perspective, right? But that's a filter. That's a potential bias that we judge others through. So be cautious of that. And
mhm,
know what your traditions are and how they support you or don't serve you, right? That's the other one. And then another one is how we learn. I'm a multisensory learner. If you're trying to teach me something, and you've done this, right? We've done this together on our Zoom calls. Show
mhm,
me what you're saying. Let me show you what I'm doing. Most people are visual learners. They need auditory, they need visual, and then they need to execute, write it out, do it on the computer. So, who am I speaking with and how do they learn? I have to understand that because it's not about me, it's about whoever I'm talking to, right? Especially if I'm in a client conversation. And
Right.
then another one is our beliefs. So we
Mm,
have beliefs that are no longer serving us. And I don't care how you slice and dice it, guys. When we talk about business, a lot's going on up here. We need to get in control of it. So where are those beliefs coming from? Some of them are serving us good, man. Lean into them and strengthen them. Some are not serving us. And I share really quickly one for me. When I was younger, we lived in Newark and we were coming home one day from the shore from vacation. And because we had riots in Newark, it was during the 60s, it was really bad. We went through a different way than we normally went home. I was 5 years old in the car and I see these beautiful homes up on the hill. And I say to my parents, who lives there? Thinking princesses, right? I'm a 5 year old. They both aggressively respond. Bad people live there. Crooks live there. There's guns. There's death in there. And so what did I, big house, death, crooks, bad
mhm,
people, the mob. It was the mob and the mafia, the Italian mafia back in the day, right?
mhm,
So fast forward, now in business, I realized several things came out of my mouth with my husband where I was like, I can't do that. People think I'm a crook. And he looks at me like, why would anybody think you're a crook? Because you know me, I'm the furthest thing from a crook, right? I'm too honest sometimes because I say what's in my head, right? That filter's missing. Well, fast forward, it was holding me back from my business success because my perception was if people perceive me as successful, they're going to think I'm a crook. I had to go back and realize where that belief came from. And then I
mhm,
had to rewire my brain to say, no, I am in integrity all the time. And that
mhm.
I love my clients that I get to work with. And my business has grown exponentially since dealing with that. It was a very limiting belief for me. So all of these things
Wow.
impact how we communicate. Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
So those foundational components for those of you that are listening, it's men and women that were wired different, where you grew up, the heritage, how we learn, and then belief. So those are some things that you want to have at the top of your head while you're thinking about you're talking to your prospects and such.
Yep.
Why is understanding these things, or where do we find our sales communication superpowers, and why is that important?
Yeah, it's a good question. So again, coming up through sales for 40 years, 40 plus years now, I was taught several different communication models. And
Mhm.
about a decade ago, I was working with a colleague and she was in academia. She was the dean of a school. So they used Myers-Briggs. That was their communication
Okay.
model. And I had grown up using DISC. And we were talking about they're brilliant models. I am not taking anything away from them. They are brilliant and they have their place. But for me, when I'm teaching sales, I have to make it really simple. And Myers Briggs is much too complicated to understand and then apply when I'm talking to someone.
Okay.
So, and DISC was easier to use, but people forgot what a D, I, S, and C was. So,
Mhm.
again, when you're with a client, you're thinking about what a D is versus trying to lean into who the client is. So, at
Mhm.
the end, we'll give this link for everybody. My colleague and I, we created our own communication style assessment. It's a real short quiz, and you'll get 2 reports. The one spotlights your natural communication superpowers. We need to identify that, Amanda, because we want to lean into that and always strengthen that because it's our natural way to communicate and it's how our message is landing for potential clients or existing
Mhm.
clients. So that's important. The flip side, though, our lowest score is usually a pretty big blind spot. And
Mm.
that's when our message, when we're talking to someone who's 180 degrees different than us, when I'm communicating, my message isn't landing for them. So I'll give you a tangible example. You can all see I move fast, I think fast, I fire fast, I'm animated when I speak. If I'm talking to an engine, don't laugh at me, you. If I'm
It is so true.
it's part of my charm, baby. But anyway, so if I'm talking to an engineering or a computer firm and they need
Mhm.
help with their sales, right? If I show up like this, like the bring on my energy and stuff like this,
Mhm.
all they're thinking about is she moves a lot. She talks a lot. I don't know what
Mhm.
she's saying. My message is not landing for them. So I need to go in, slow down, reel in my energy, watch my eye contact. Like I'm looking at the camera so that I'm making eye contact with everyone. I would
Mhm.
need to look away and then look back. They would need that for me. And additionally, I don't need analytics. You give me 3 facts, I'll make a decision right here, right now. I fire
Mhm.
fast. An engineer, computer, they need more time to percolate and think about. I need to give them analytics. So
Mhm.
I don't naturally think that way, but if I know that's the firm I'm going to go talk to, I better show up so my message lands properly for them. So for me,
Mhm.
the blind spot is almost more important than our superpowers, because 8 out of 10 people we talk to, they're not communicating like us. So
Right.
80% of the time, we better know what our blind spots are. And I don't like the word weakness. I call them blind spots. And then how can I compensate or prepare better so that my message lands for the person I'm actually speaking with or hoping to get the business from?
And that lands a lot when I think about the people that this show is for, it lands really well, understanding what those blind spots are because we just inherently have them as being women in these different industries that
100%.
traditionally men are in. And we're usually one of the only females at the table, the C-suites, or even when we're out bidding like large jobs on construction sites. So that communication, knowing what our barriers are, would I see would be very important. So,
Yeah.
and that's
100%.
why you're here because I think uncovering that for folks is going to be really important. Um, why is understanding our buyers or buyer communication style so important? I kind of set that one up already, but like,
Yeah, it's basically the same thing. So if and my story just a good example of that.
mhm.
Um, and it's just funny because and I'll share another story. When I first started as a financial advisor, I came in on a Saturday. I was working for a bank, and the gentleman was an older gentleman. And I walk in, and he says, "Oh, you're a girl and you're young. What do you know?"
Ooh.
So here's another lesson learned, man. And I learned it as a young woman, right? I thought I wanted to slap him in the face and say, okay, you're ignorant jerk, leave. But I didn't. I said I was raised to be respectful. So I said to him, listen, I understand. I have a peer. He's your peer, right? That works with me. We're here. It's a Saturday. Give me 10 minutes. Let me do some preliminary, exploration here. And then I could share that with Joe, my colleague. And I said, can you give me 10 minutes? And then afterwards, I'm happy on Monday to hand you off. He said, all right, you got 10 minutes. So now I'm super mindful. Now it's interesting because I had just finished my MBA. I didn't tell anybody that because to me, that was my own self. I needed that for my own self. He needed to know I had an MBA. He needed to know I had all my licenses because that made me value added to him. So I
Mhm.
shared that information. I did my job. I made it all about him. At the end of 10 minutes, I was mindful. I said, our 10 minutes are up. Would you like to continue or would you like me to hand you off? And he looked at me and he said, you're amazing. And I said, excuse me? And he said, you're smart. And he said, you're respectful. And he says, and I don't need to meet the other gentleman. He said, you honored the 10 minutes and you've shown me the value. How could I not want to work with you? I was like, I wanted to say to him, I wanted to slap you 5 minutes ago, right? Here's the funniest piece of the story. He became one of my best referrers because, and later on he said to me, I was so rude to you and that you had so much grace in that meeting and honored who I was that he said you won me over and
Mhm.
he just referred me to everybody because I was also good at what I did, but he liked that respect that I was raised properly as an older gentleman. You never know. You just never know. So how we respond and how we show up really does matter. And that's why the communication, I think, is so valuable in understanding because 8 out of 10 times we're speaking with people that are different than us, generationally or otherwise.
Mhm. What comes to mind while you're telling me that story is thick skin. And I think just alluding back to something that you said earlier in this interview, in that when we're all in spaces like women only spaces or, BIPOC only spaces, there tends to be a missing link and missing like that innovation, that piece of innovation that you alluded to earlier. But with what you just said, how can you build in that thick skin? One of my mentors said to me that the first one in any argument, the first one to anger loses. So, where did that thick skin come from? with you. I'm going completely off script and throwing this
No,
question at her
yeah,
because
no, this
for
is
those that are watching, because I'm like, but how do you get there? So somebody that is, quite a few years younger, um, even than me, I know, you're quite a few years older than me, but like, how do we build thick skin?
so here's the thing, especially in business, but in just in life in general, when someone attacks you like that gentleman did, it really had nothing to do with me.
Mhm,
It was his own biases that he didn't even know existed. I just positioned myself to overcome it. And here's the other thing, my initial was because I had vim and vigor in my 20s. Now I'm just tired. But back then, I wanted to climb over the desk and say, "You're rude. Like, who do you think you are?"
mhm,
Would that have done anything? No. It's like blowing into the wind. Nobody's even here or talking into the wind. He wouldn't have heard me. But
mhm,
by me showing the integrity that I had and the self-respect I had, I won him over. Does it work every time? No, it doesn't. I've had people scream at me through my career. So here's what I've learned. Here's really the long and short of it. You don't know what people are going through. You got to
mhm,
honor where they are. And as soon as we do that, we come from a place of love, care, and respect,
mhm,
not judgment. And I think that's step number one. Step number two, when someone reacts that way, because we don't know what they're going through, we don't know how they were raised, we don't know what their biases and beliefs are, and it doesn't really matter. It's never about me. It's never been about me. It's always about them and what they're working through. And then the third thing is I can't control the other person. I can just control how I respond to that situation. Now, had he continued to be disrespectful at that 10-minute mark, if he was snarky with me, I would have said, "Hey, listen, this is as far as I can help you. I think it's a good idea that I hand you off because I will not tolerate someone being very disrespectful to me." So you
mhm.
see what I mean? But yeah, the thick skin, it's not being thick skinned. I think it's just about, "Ooh, I wonder what they're going through." As soon as we have that little tweak of our brain, you're shifting to empathy, care, and love, right? So it's not anger, it's love now. Very different emotional impact. And then I can't control them. I can only control me. And as soon as you start doing that, you don't take things so personally because I've learned it's never been about me when they have an issue. And it's funny, like later on, he said to me, "I don't know how you didn't slap me in the like we had some really good conversations." And he's like, "I need you to coach my kids." And we joked about it later on, but he knew after because I was gracious how rude he was. It became very apparent as well. So just it's never about you. That's the main. It's just never about you. So
Mhm.
just honor where people are, and I find that we live life from just this place of ease and grace versus this, "Oh, I have to deal with this guy again." Just it becomes a different vibe. And oh, by the way, heck of a lot less stressful.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I felt a sense of ease as you were talking through those things. But as you shared the story earlier, I got this flash of red face, and it's almost like a trigger because I went back to scenarios where I've been you know, in a spot where men have looked at me like, "What are you doing?" And I look young, I'm in spaces that I shouldn't be. But yeah, that's why I asked, and it feels like as we get older, these um and if it's not thick skin, I guess it's just rewiring your brain to be like, well, this is who I am, and this is where this person is, and that it's never about me. I feel like we learn that later in life, and hopefully, maybe that's not the case. That people are learning it younger and younger. But that would be a huge takeaway for me in this interview is remembering that it's never about me and rewiring the brain to that, so that you can have that 10 minutes, because when you have that 10 minutes and you're on your A game, that's really changed the course of your life, and you got a friend out of it.
And a great refer. I made a lot of money right
Mhm,
off of him per se, but I was also in integrity. I was honest. I did the right thing.
mhm,
All of those pieces of the puzzle as well. I mean, you got to deliver. Or in my world, I think you have to over deliver for that client. And
yeah,
the other thing, when it comes to the sales process, right?
mhm,
When you get those objections or someone says no to you, in my world, three things are happening. And I just shared this with one of my clients yesterday. He's a mindset coach out of
mhm,
Hawaii and great kid. And so we were talking and he said, "Oh, Con," goes, "when people say like, I don't have the budget for it." And I said, "Well, don't," and he felt like, what could I have done differently? So I says, we can explore that, right? Because you probably made a mistake early on in the sales process that you got that objection. I said, but here's the thing going forward. When you get an objection, three things should happen. One, the client, when you do your presentation, like you and I, when we met, it was a done deal, right? Both reciprocity for what you were doing and what I was doing. We found that I needed you, you needed me, right? So there was this great connection there. Well, here's the thing. If it wasn't, and you said to me no, or I said to you no, it's not personal. It's not about you. Your recommendation didn't fit me, or my recommendation didn't fit you. So when someone, it's the right moment, it's the right fit, they're going to be leaning in going, how fast can we do this? Perfect fit. That's your ideal client. Beautiful, man. That's a great feeling. If they say I don't have the budget or whatever, which is what's happening to him, I said, the second thing is you respond and say, I hear you. You're not ready for me yet. So how about we do this? I have a YouTube channel. I have a blog. I write articles. Get on my email list. You'll learn. You could do some inner work, right? And then 6 months, 3 months, 9 months, whenever the financial position changes, you and I will be in each other's orbit, and then you'll be ready for me. You're just not ready for me yet. And that's okay, right? And the third one is, I'm not the good fit for you. You don't need me. You need my friend Amanda. You need really to sort out the financial chaos. That's not my zone of genius. My zone of genius is sales. I don't want to get in the weeds with your numbers. Can I? Sure. Do I want to? No. I have a friend who does that. So you see, three things. They are ready to buy. They're not ready because the timing's off, and you say, you're not ready for me yet. You take that ownership, but give them a plan. So now you're following up with them. They're still in your orbit. They're a good lead. And then when the timing is right, the sale happens. You, by doing this, Amanda, you create what I call passive income. Because once a month now, if you do that enough, once a month, people become, remember we met 6 months ago? I'm ready to do it now. So all of a sudden, right, you've money come out of the blue. It's passive income by you doing these good habits.
That's awesome. In the leaning, like going back to the leaning in piece, when someone is just like, they are eating from your hand. You feel, I call them goosebump moments when I'm with a
Yes.
prospect, and
Yes.
it feels good. Ways to identify that could be through the different communication styles. Yeah. So
Yes.
what are those 5 different communication styles that you have?
So there's 5 of them, right? So again, we have one that's usually super high, possibly 2 that are super high, but on average, keep it simple. 8 out of 10 people you're speaking with are different than you. So the first one is a heartfelt advocate. These are communicators that are very heart driven. They live through their heart. They feel through their heart. It's the old saying of they wear their heart on the sleeve. So they're heartfelt advocates. They'll advocate for you because they love you. Blind spot with heartfelt advocates. Past hurts can get in the way of them moving forward. So you're at a big crossroad in your life and you're afraid to move forward because of something that happened in the past. So we have to be careful of that. So you need someone that's an ally or a mentor or a sounding board to say, you need to do this, right? And kind of help you move forward. So that's your heartfelt advocate. Next one is your precise assessor. Precise assessors love to they don't necessarily love to do the research, but they love to take all the data and find the pathway, find the analytics, be able to look at things. Okay. Precise assessor is not one of my strengths, by the way. So when you're talking to someone who's a high precise assessor, you need to show up with the analytics. They need to go from A to B to C. So if you're heartfelt advocates, they're speaking from their heart. The precise assessor's like, I don't care about that. Give me the facts because I need the facts to make a decision. So you see how that little tweak? Precise assessors have to be careful. They're blind spot. They don't like conflict. So if there's something happening and they're not in agreement, so you're selling to them and they're not understanding, they will politely come up with an excuse or an objection because you just haven't communicated with them the way they need to be communicated with. So be really mindful of that because they won't say, I don't understand. What does this mean? They will avoid conflict at all costs. And that's dangerous if I'm on a team and I'm a precise assessor and the team needs me and I'm not willing to give my input because I'm afraid of that conflict. It's dangerous. So you have to find your voice, but you have to make sure that you share because usually the data that you're coming from is very, very on point and the project or the person or the client might need you. The next one is the observing designer. So this is the person, and you know who your friends are, extremely brilliant, but they love to do research to the point where they have a deadline. This is the blind spot. They have a deadline, but they keep doing more research. And every link in the article, they have to go down that rabbit hole. So 9 hours later, they go, oh, where it's dark outside? What happened? They were stuck in the research phase. We need people to do the research so we can make an educated decision. But if you're talking to someone like me, a CEO of an organization, I don't want to know all that research. You're killing me. I'd rather have pins in my eyes. I'm going to chew my arm off and make an excuse and say, see ya. I'm not the right client for you. So be mindful of that. Research is beautiful. When's enough, right? Because it's that law of diminishing returns. And then the next one is the stimulating motivator. And you're going to guess what I am at the end. But the stimulating motivator, super high energy, goal driven. They're rushing to the finish line, but they want to inspire people. That's why they're very stimulating in how they motivate people. So inspirational speakers are stimulating motivators. Blind spot for my stimulating motivators. You're so driven and moving so fast to get to the finish line, you can leave a wake of angst behind you because the precise assessors and the observing designers, they're like, wait, what is going on? She's making decisions and she doesn't even have the research yet, right? So we can leave angst behind us. And oh, by the way, it could take us longer to achieve the goal because we're 50,000 feet up in the air and not asking for the analytics that can make the solution even better. And then the last one is the innovative organizer. And that's just that CEO mentality. Again, very driven, but they're where the stimulating motivator is goal driven, they're very people driven as well. Where the innovative organizer, it's like, get out of my way. I got things to do. And you're now in my way. You're a distraction, and they could come across as extremely rude. So be careful, because if you're the CEO or you're the leader of your team and you're being this, get out of my way. I got things to do. You missed the deadline. I'll do it myself. Again, you're leaving angst behind you. And trust me, you're wasting a lot of time and money because you're way too far up in the air, and you're not, you need your precise assessors, observing designers. And oh, by the way, your heartfelt advocates to help you soften your approach. So you really want to build a team where you have all 5 styles present with you. What do you think my 2 top styles are? Because you know me well enough.
Stimulating motivator.
Yeah.
And then heartfelt advocate.
Isn't that funny? I love you for that. My stimulating motivator is a 50. So the score is 50 to a negative 50. I'm a 50 out of 50. My innovative organizers, the CEO mentality, a 38. My heartfelt advocate is a 0, which is right in the middle. Yeah, I know. Isn't that so fascinating? It's you've met my husband. He's like a 50 out of 50 heartfelt advocate. Yeah. That's the yin yang, right? Now, here's the thing, and this goes back to remember I said our learning styles, it's also learned behavior. Being married for 32 years, my husband is so kind that I've learned how to find that heartfelt approach, because you just serve better, right? When you come from that love, care, and respect. But that was learned for me. Now it's part of me because I've used it for 40 years being in sales. But I had to learn that skill. That's not where I go. And then being a coach, now coaching and teaching people, coaching for 25 years, being in business, I have to leverage that heartfelt advocate. Even though it's never going to be natural for me, you can learn it and make it part of your own internal processing, if you will.
That's it kind of answers the question that I had, which is, can you grow towards different ones? So like when I did disc, when I was younger, I was a high D. When I did it, recently, I'm more of the I, right? So influencer.
Yep.
So now with yours, I'm guessing because it was almost 2 years ago now that I did this. I think I was heartfelt advocate or innovative organizer.
I think
It's
they
one
were
of
your
the 2.
I think they were your top 2. Yeah. So see, you've
I could see
leveraged.
the young me would be stimulating motivator.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so just so you know, we are who we are. We're never I will never be a precise assessor, yet I create manuals, right? I create content that is very precise. My dad was an engineer, again, learns behavior. As a little kid, I would come to him with a problem and he'd say, let's do the pros and cons table. What? And He would force me to sit down, write out the pros, I still use that. I teach my kids that. Is that natural to me? No, I learned it. I think it's a
Mhm.
useful tool. I use it. So
Mhm.
again, embrace the things. And here's one last thing, because I know we're almost out of time, but we crave the styles that we are not. So
Mhm.
somebody about 2 years ago said to me, are all of your friends like you, that high energy, get it done, get out of my
Yeah.
way, direct person? And I said, oh, no one's ever asked me that. Let me think about it for a minute. And the answer was no. I seek the heartfelt advocates. I seek the precise assessors, because that will never be a strength of mine. So I
Mhm.
crave it and I appreciate it in others, and I leverage it though. See, I'm smart enough now. Again, with age comes wisdom, kids. But I'll go to my precise assessors
Mhm.
and say, hey, listen, I need analytics. Do you have time to do this for me? Because I hate doing this. And they go, oh, I love doing that. Oh, I'll do the research for you, right? And then I do other things for them to reciprocate that energy that they're sharing back with me. But now I don't even try to do it myself. I just hire people or I ask for help, because
Yeah.
I'm wasting too much time and too much energy doing something I'm never going to be good at.
Right. Right. So with this communication knowledge, can you draw the straight line for me, for the audience, on how this can help us increase our sales or grow our businesses?
So everything we've talked about, right? Get a thicker skin, your words, that thicker skin. For me, it's just create ease in our conversation, eliminate judgment the best we can. We're a judgy society, but eliminate judgment the best you can. That's number one. And then the communication. Realize 8 out of 10 times you're talking to people 180 degrees different than you. Understand them so that you can slow your energy, raise your energy, talk slower, talk faster, give analytics, don't give analytics, give a broad depending on who's in front of you. You could master this, where in about 15 to 30 seconds, you'll get the vibe of what their style is of the five, and just lean into it. Even though I'm not a heartfelt advocate, and again, that was a beautiful compliment that you gave me, because I strive for that, right? But when I'm with those heartfelt advocates, I don't start with business. I'm like, so what's going on? How you
Mhm.
doing? What's new? Any struggles lately? Right? I do this very lovey. They need that from me. It's still me. I'm still being authentic. I'm just amping my love up a little higher, because that's what they need to set the stage for us to dig into the business after that. So again,
Mhm.
you're still being you. You're just leveraging this understanding so that you can pivot, flex, lean into however you want to visualize it. But you're giving that person what they need to hear and process your messaging. And if you're not doing that, you're leaving money on the table and you're losing sales foundationally right out of the gate in that first 30 seconds. That's how
Mhm.
important this is.
It's very important to get to that $1 million too. So
Yeah.
those of
Yeah.
you that are striving to get there, that's one of the foundational pieces. And one of my signature questions in Her First Million on YouTube here is, can you recommend any valuable resources for folks? And I think the resource that I would like to recommend is to make sure that my listeners can take this communication style assessment,
Sure.
because it's been a huge game changer for me too. So how can we do that?
So the link you'll put in the show notes,
Mhm.
I'll give you the link for it's the CSA, it's the communication style assessment. You take the quiz, you'll get 2 reports. It'll give you links that you have to put into your URL, but you'll get two, your high and your low. Really pay attention to the lower score, because that's where your message might be misconstrued or misinterpreted. So you want to understand what that blind spot is. So if you're talking to someone, in my case, a precise assessor or the observing designer, I know that right out of the gate. I slow my roll and I give a lot of detail, because I know they need that. So again, that'll be in the show notes for all your listeners. That will put you in my email list. And I think I have 7 or 8 where I give little tips and little exercises for you as well. So, and if, of course, reach out to me, Connie at changingthesalesgame.com with any questions. I'm happy to help any way I can.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for all these insights,
Thank
Connie.
you so much, Amanda. I love hanging out with you, kiddo.
I know, I miss it. The video description will include all of those links and resources mentioned during the show. And please remember to subscribe and hit that notification button to stay in the loop on the next episode of Her First Million. Until next time, here's to your success.